Hi, everyone. You're listening to The Dog's Voice. The Dog's Voice is a part of the Canine Emotional Detox group, and the talks focus on stress release protocol and behavior. I hope you all had a great holiday and you survived, and that your fur kids all were great during the changes in environment as they popped in and out all throughout the holidays. And if you had a quiet holiday, great. We did. We had more of a quiet holiday this year. It's usually packed with things to do, but this year, no. So I'd like to welcome you, and I'm going to be speaking on the environment and behavior. And the Dog's Voice is aired 2 times monthly, once with me presenting a topic and once with a speaker. The very first thing is that everything revolves around the environment, and you just have to know that and to pay attention to what's going on in the environment. So the Dog's Voice was started with a focus on how important it is to not just train, but to listen to your dog from the inside outwardly. What is that dog telling you? Then teach based on those observations. Often we just push ourselves on our dogs, so to speak, and do what we want to do with them without really thinking about how they're responding to what's happening around them and around us. To know is really important, and not to assume what the dog is voicing through body language and vocalizations. Both are very important. And as a part of this group, the emotional detox, the Canine Emotional Detox, or CED for short, and my study and research on stress in dogs, the educational focus is on stress release, chronic and acute stress, and normalizing stress, because let's face it, stress is normal. It helps us to survive, and building good stress, which is the mood enhancer. And we see the little dog to the left who just did a CED, and he's a city dog, New York City. And you can tell he's not very happy at this moment. His paws raised, he's apprehensive, his ears are back, his mouth is closed. And the only thing we see here to indicate why is that he has a harness and a leash on. And that means he has to go outside. And so the environment change is not something he wants. So let's look at the next slide, and please be writing down your questions and post them or ask me later. I love answering the questions that come about. We want to see life from the dog's perspective. That's really the simplistic way of putting it. Now, we have a few pointers throughout the PowerPoint. Adaptability, indoor versus outdoor, and that means social and physical environments. And I'm going to talk a little bit about environmental enrichment later on. So the question is, does the dog adapt on their own to the environment? So this is a little dog also in New York City, and she also hates to go outside. There's so many noises, changing of the environment. So walking her in the hallway up and down the stairs is probably going to be her walk for a while. Here's how she handles that. You can see that she's very apprehensive. We had a lip lick. We have wide eyes. She is trusting her guardian. She waits at the top of the stairs, hoping that they might just go back. We're doing some physical exercise here. She looks back up and, yeah, you want to go back up? Well, yes, and see how she is like a horse heading to the barn. That she goes faster back to her apartment door. Versus lagging behind going down because she's very apprehensive. She looked out the window, she heard a noise, lip lick again, another lip lick, pacing, and back to the apartment. So even just this walk with nobody around and just the noises outside of the city are very distressing to her. That's how important environment is. So does the dog adapt on their own to the environment? I would say no here. Or does the environment have to be adapted to the dog? So we have to adapt the environment to the dog and help her to feel more comfortable. I would say we would use treats here to pair good things and counter condition the noises that she's hearing outside. Pair good things with her triggers and stimuli. We're going to talk about indoor and busy environments and indoor quiet environments and outdoor structuring and the challenges of both social and physical environments. And then environmental research, where we need to watch body language, even if we're offering enrichment. So we'll look at some strategies there as well. So as I said before, everything revolves around the environment. And there's a photo in my book. It's called The Right Combination, and it actually is a stress release format. But the environment, the arrow points to the environment being meaningful as everything that we do on whether it's stress release or something else, is the environment evolves around everything that we do. And it really indicates the quality of the pet's surroundings. So I'd like to welcome Becky and Dawn for attending. And we are in progress. So I will just continue. If you need to write out a question, please do so in the meeting chat. We're talking about everything revolves around the environment. And to continue, you have to ask, is the environment compatible to what I am asking the dog to do? If not, then you may have to adapt the environment to the dog versus the dog easily adapting to the environment on their own. That might not be happening. Can my dog complete the activities within the environment parameters offered? Whether that's a performance venue, on walks, social activities, anything, take a look at the environment. Today I was on a walk with my dogs. Sky has dog reactivity, and there was a little dog walking, barking pretty far away. So he started to be alert. And I asked my husband to move out of the way. And the one thing he did not do was to toss treats, because he forgot to bring treats so he could do a surprise in that environment, which is more challenging. And he had Sky out in front of him as that dog was walking by, barking at him. So, of course, Sky did issue a small bark, not as bad as it used to be, but he did react. So the environment was not covered like it should have been this morning, whereas my other dog can adapt himself to the environment versus we or you having to adapt the environment to your dog. So can your dog relax? That's what you have to ask yourself. Can they concentrate? Can they listen to you? How is the environment affecting that activation of the brain? Because when we activate the brain, it influences the dog's mind and it increases their well-being and influences their behavior. Yes, there's a lot of things to consider, but when we have a dog, like when we have children, we become trainers, and that onus of teaching is on us at that point. So what do we want them to learn? How is it influencing the mind? How is the environment influencing their behavior? Is your dog experiencing a sense of well-being or not? So there are problems with environments. And when I'm talking about environments, that's every place your dog is put. Indoors, the living room is one environment, the kitchen is another environment, the hallway is another environment. You'll hear of dogs barking and lunging with people coming down a hallway, or they'll run and hide if they hear a person coming down the hallway. That's a different environment. So we ask ourselves, how can we adapt that environment to the dog so that these behaviors do not occur or they diminish, and we're teaching the dog what to do instead? That's really important. We want to have adaptability again. Adaptability is very important. So the dog on the left is relaxing on the porch, and another dog comes up behind to cautiously, as you can see, sniff them from behind. And this could be a good or a bad situation. So again, ask, can the dog adapt to the environment, or must the environment be adapted to suit the dog? If a fight occurred in this instance, we should know long before that would occur whether this environment was appropriate for this particular meet and greet. However, if we didn't, and a fight broke out, well, then we've got our work cut out for us, and we're going to have to find some other barriers, or not just let the other dog out with that dog, and on and on. I bet you can think right now of several things that you could do to help both of these dogs adjust and not fight. So we would be adapting the environment to suit the dog. So what are we trying to do? Are we asking the dog to adapt to an environment that they can't handle? So is what's happening in the environment right now, and look around you and where you are in your environment, is what's happening right now something your dog can handle? Or is it something that you feel that they cannot handle? And then ask yourself, well, how can I help my dog handle this environment? So the dog's adapting versus human adapting. You know, sometimes we as humans do not listen to the dog, but to our own expectations of what should happen. That's where we're imposing our exercises, our training, our teaching on the dog. And sometimes when the dog can't handle some of that teaching and handling. So we need to stop, we need to assess, and we need to observe the environment and listen to the dog's body language. So just, I guess, smell the roses. I'm going to have a lot of pictures of environment, outdoor environments. And this one, I just want you to close your eyes and just imagine taking your dog into this particular environment, and how do they see it from their point of view? So this is quite a wide open environment. What would your dog do? My dog would be fine off lead here, one of my dogs. If there were no other dogs, my second dog is dog reactive. I don't see any dogs in the field. He would probably be fine and respond immediately when I called him back to me. What would your dog be doing at this point? Does your dog have 100% recall? 100% check-in? What a check-in is that if they go up and away from you, do they turn around and come back and check in with you periodically, like maybe every 30 seconds? Or not? If you say or not, then your dog should not be off lead here, even if there's nobody around. Because I've seen hound dogs, for instance, just take off. And when that happens, you're not going to get them back. And you don't know what's around this field. You don't have any idea what's happening here. So you take a risk. It's like jumping off the diving board at the pool. If you go into the pool and there's no lifeguard, you're taking a risk for your own life. Or if you're swimming in the ocean, you're taking a risk. So do you have the skills that are conducive to doing those things and that you can be safe? Does your dog have those skills? What do you know about this environment? If you're traveling and you just walk into this environment, you may know nothing about this environment. There might be prey animals. There might be other dogs guarding these lands. You have no idea. But if it's a familiar environment where you walk, then that's quite a different story. We're going to talk about some stories now about, the first one is on dog reactivity in an environmental situation. I'm hoping, yes. These will call up some YouTube videos on my channel where I have hundreds of videos and before photos and after and little clips of progression with behavior. And we'll take a look at some of that. There we go. And this is my Valor in this particular instance. Oh no, this is my Cody. This is Cody, and Cody is the best teacher dog ever. The other dog is dog reactive. And we'll play that. It's short, so we'll play it again. So we're doing a parallel walk. All right. And you can see they're feeding. Cody's very good. He knows what to do. And the other dog is really just avoiding Cody at this point, but we had worked up slowly to where they could be that close in this particular walk. So now let's take a look, get back here. Sorry. Just trying to get back to the room here. Oh, there we go. All right. The next one is recall responsiveness. And do you have 100% recall? That's really important. And it takes about 600 recalls of varying types to really have a reliable recall. So this is in a field, and my two terms, you're going to see one is going to be latent, so I know I have to work with. I have to work with him a little bit more because he's latent in coming to me. Cody came right away, and then this is Valor. He loves dogs. He wants to be around dogs, but that little corgi did not want to have anything to do with him, and he listened to her. So I don't have any worries about him not listening, but I would need to work on my recall more so that in various environments, I can call them away from prey and I can call them away from other dogs. And that takes some work. So then if you have another, there are many recalls. I have many. We're ending the walk, and when they hear, we've probably just gone like 2 or 3 miles and we're ending the walk. And when they hear that'll be all come away, they should be rushing back to me. And they can sit or not. I don't care. But in this instance, he did sit. So we want to make sure that the environments we're putting our dogs into, that they can adapt well to them. And you can see the 3 environments here. We've got yellow, maybe some flowers there. Do you know what kind they are? Maybe not. Green fields with trails. You can see all the trails around us, pretty tempting. And then you have the tree-lined area that looks like there's a pathway. And if you are on leash, you should stick to that pathway. Which would your dog choose? Ask that question to you right now. Which would your dog choose? Hi, Mary. Thanks for joining us. We are into the talk, so just sit back and enjoy. So imagine that environment from your dog's point of view. So what techniques lead to adaptability in these environments? Well, one is always paying attention to the 3 Ds: distance, duration, and distraction. Think of a painting. You're looking at a painting and something all of a sudden comes into that painting that wasn't there before. Now that would make you a little bit reactive or responsive in a maybe screaming sort of way. Now think of your dog seeing things come into the environment. They really do pay a lot of sensory attention to that because of the way that they're bred. Things that come into the environment might be a big, caution to them that they would have to do something about it or react to it or send it away. So always look at what's happening from your dog's point of view. I'm going to talk about a dog, Lobo. He's in Germany, and he is a rescue street dog. And he was very frightened, and he was not liking people. They were making him do things that he did not want to do, and giving up his freedom was one of those things. So we worked with him here. The very first thing is anything placed into his environment, because he is not getting off this bed. We need to have distance, duration in mind, and distractions. He's very fearful, and if a person would go up to try to touch him, he would bite that person. The person had worked up to putting the objects at this distance and walking away. We're trying to see if he can interact with any of these, or is it too much? The other technique is check it out. If something falls in the environment, if there's a loud noise or a crash, it's okay to nurture your dog, and it's okay to say, check it out. If I say check it out, my dogs trust me, that they know that they can come back and look at it and it's not going to hurt them, whatever it was. A broom fell on the floor, for instance. Checking it out shows a certain curiosity. And then they learn from that this thing is not going to hurt them. So when they hear that sound again, I might add treats to it. I might just add nothing, but praise them profusely for checking something out. In the picture here with Lobo, we're asking him to check out yet some other types of distractions in his mind, but objects in our mind. And he doesn't know, check it out yet. So you just add the cue. Maybe later, if he's touching one of these objects, you can say, check it out. And then that makes more sense. And we could put food around these objects that the dog fears if he likes a certain type of food. And it should be an ask. The dog has choice. So Lobo understands that he has choice. If he wants to stay on that bed, he can. Or if he wants to go and sniff one of those objects and go back to his bed, he can do that too. So pair good things with triggers. So that's counter conditioning, isn't it? We pair something good, a tidbit of food, maybe a tug toy or ball play, or if they love the attention that you give them, then we pair attention with triggers. And here he's kind of moved to the middle of the bed, and we were able to switch out some other objects to see if any of those were interesting to him, and not so much. Now, this all seems very easy to us, but to Lobo, this is like climbing a mountain. Then you can change routine as well and introduce new experiences. That's what we're doing. Lobo was on the street. He may never have seen anything like this. So introducing some new experiences. And with this, we're doing a path of food, just food spread around here, around the objects. And you can see he's still not interested. So you have your work cut out for you when you have a dog like this, if you're going to help them to adapt. It's very, very important that you take your time to do this and not rush through. The mistakes I always see with people is that when they go too fast, they don't go forward, they don't progress, they go back many, many, many steps. Just because you want to go faster doesn't mean the dog wants to. You always have to keep that in mind. So changing routine slowly, periodically, that creates the dog who can then generalize and cope better, because generalizing means that they're coping in the environment that you're putting them into. And then we added a dog to Lobo here. And the reason is so that he could see how another dog interacts with an object. And he has his mouth open. He is more responsive to watching the other dog. And that we know will help him to interact eventually with objects in the room. And this is a really good teacher dog that he had here. So what are the benefits of adaptability? You teach what you want the dog to do instead. You hear that all the time. Teach what you want the dog to do instead. So if they're doing a behavior that you don't like, because I hesitate to say bad behavior, then we put a label on it. Then you just say, well, what else do I want them to do? And you teach that instead, and you break it down into baby steps. And think of a staircase. You're going up the staircase. Here's where you are. Here's where you want to be. But what do you have to do to break it down? For instance, if I want the dog to sit, I want them to sit in the performance ring when I ask them to, quickly, responsively, after a heel. then I have to start way down here teaching that. And then I have to teach them to sit in many different environments, sit in the kitchen, sit in the living room, sit outside at the park, so on and so forth. So break it down into tiny steps so that they have success doing what you're asking them to do. It isn't about you. Then other benefits are prevention, management, supervision become easier, and they become routine for the human, because the human has to learn too. What am I looking for in the environment? How can I help my dog adapt to the environment? I'm just walking along. What's coming into the environment, and what do I have to do when this thing occurs versus that thing? So a lot of times we as trainers aren't explicit enough about talking to the human and walking them through what they should be doing. It applies to the human as well. Taking their dog into an environment, can they adapt to it? Or do you have to adapt the environment to help the human side of the leash understand what's going on? Generalization also starts to occur. We always hear that dogs don't generalize. Well, I think it's more of that we don't teach them to be comfortable in a variety of environments step by step, or we go too fast, or we take them, for instance, New York City, downtown, and somebody has a flat tire and there's a big loud sound and people are screaming. Well, if that happens while you're on your walk, and you don't have a bomb-proof dog, that dog is going to have some therapy after that. The dog needs to feel safe. So if they don't feel safe, then we can't take them into that environment. And they have to be able to cope with what's going on around them. We have our social and physical environments. Now, a social environment is one where you're seeing people and dogs and anything that they have to interact with. And the science and research is pretty clear. I like Lindsay's Neurobiology of Behavior and Learning on Survival, and Robert Sapolsky, of course, the Ecology of Stress Effects on the Social Environment, and on aspects of social environment on stress and adaptability. What Lindsay says is that survival depends on dogs' ability to learn from experiences. That's what we're talking about, is each environment represents a different experience. So survival depends on the dog's ability to learn from that, to adjust behavior in accordance with what the dog has learned. If they haven't learned anything and they don't know how to head into that environment, that's going to be difficult for them. But we have to drop our expectations and teach them what we want them to do in each environment, how we want to have them interact socially, and to form a set of reliable predictions and strategies. Think of the staircase, that enable the dog to encounter similar circumstances most effectively in the future. If I can set my dog up for success in every environment that I take him into, I am more likely to have a very good dog that can cope with the environment. And if nothing else, look to me for advice on how to handle something. So stress puts a dog into survival mode. Think of it that way. The dog is not surviving if their stress level is going up. The cell makeup changes, therefore the behavior changes. Sounds simple, but what's going on is inside. It's all of the neurochemicals firing. So making good decisions and problem solving are impaired. So if I take my dog into an environment and I don't handle it in a routine way that they are used to, then their problem solving can be impaired. what I'm always looking for is that the dog is making good decisions in whatever environment I'm putting them into, because I've taught them how to cope and how to handle that environment. So a vital first step to behavior change is stress release. Think about that for a second. All right, the effects of social environment. So Sapolsky says anything knocking the dog out of homeostatic ideal causes stress, because that's really what it's all about, the homeostatic ideal. You go into stress because it equalizes homeostasis, and the dog then can cope better. But if they don't come out of that homeostatic ideal and they keep being exposed to things they can't handle, that is what makes acute stress and chronic stress. So Sapolsky says aspects of the social environment affect the HPA, and all of that is happening in the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal. It affects the HPA function, and it increases the glucocorticoid concentrations of stress. So so let's say you're taking a walk, and what you want the walk to be is pleasant, not stressful, where the dog reacts constantly, because then you're building glucocorticoid concentrations. You want to decrease the glucocorticoid concentrations so that they don't go into those higher stress levels, because if they go into acute stress, it can take up to 8 hours or even days to come down from. And that's what you're trying to keep your dog away from. That's why puppy training is so important. Not worrying so much about what tricks your dog has to do and sit and down and all of that, but to help them be a social being, which would be first and foremost, teaching them how to respond to you, how to respond to an environment, how to make that environment pleasant, and not exposing them to things that they're not ready for, like a face-to-face encounter with another dog or with a person even. It is a matter of fact that frequent territorial intrusions, so think about people coming into your home, stranger danger, even things coming into view on a walk that weren't there before. These are associated with increased glucocorticoid secretions. Adaptability in an environment means being adaptable. So again, we ask ourselves, can my dog adapt to the environment on their own, or do I have to make the environment adaptable to my dog? How our dogs adapt to the environment we place them in is an important part of success release, stress release, and behavior change. We want to have success. We don't want to have stress. And so the ability to cope equals adaptability equals homeostatic balance. That's what we're always striving to do. And it involves all the senses. Your dog is always using their senses in each environment. So being in homeostatic balance equals ideal body temperature. So a high level of respiration can increase the body temperature. Ideal level of glucose when the dog reacts, if they have a neoepinephrine rush, it goes right to the liver and it creates glucose, and it's actually energy with nowhere else to go. So they have to respond somehow. Like when you see redirected or respondent aggression, the dog got a burst of glucose in the liver, and there's energy that has to go somewhere. So they can't get at the dog that they're barking at. They could go for your leg or the curtains. And so you want to have an ideal state of being. The environment starts to take its toll on the body when the dog can't come down from the stress, and they are in acute levels and chronic stress levels. So what does that mean? There's an anticipatory stress response. Even if the dog perceives or just thinks something is going to happen, that causes an anticipatory stress response. So let's say you walk the same place day in, day out, and the same dog appears in the same spot. That would be an example of anticipatory stress response, that your dog can't handle that particular dog, or a cat, or there's bunnies over here, or the squirrel tree. And when you have a constant anticipatory response, the brain is thinking about something all the time. Maybe you can think of something that applies to you as a human. Is there something you think about all the time that causes you to be wary, anxious, acute or chronic stress then builds up and occurs? And we call this in humans a neurotic behavior. So our dogs can be neurotic too, because it's survival for them. They can't afford not to know when things will occur. And so it's up to us. If we're walking down the road and we know there's a dog at this house, why can't we turn around and go in the other direction? Or can we stop and do some work with treats, click and reward for not barking? Can we walk when that dog is not out in the yard? I mean, there's just so many things to consider. And then antecedents are things that happen before the behavior. So you really want to ask yourself, when your dog has a behavior that's reactive or aggressive, what occurred before that? Because there's a lot of things occurring even up to 2 days prior to a behavior occurring. A thing or event that existed before. So what happened before the behavior is seen? This is a puppy who is graduating. As you can see, the little cup there, his graduation cup from puppy class. And one of the things is socially adapting to going places with their owner in a real life situation with real life people, maybe dogs. And this happens to be in one of our pet stores here on the island where I work. So you want to have them really adjust well to social and physical environments. And the social and physical can often go paw in paw as things come in and out of that physical environment. So for instance, the dog park. So imagine a dog attacks your dog at a dog park or on an on-leash walk. That particular physical environment will now start to mean a social aspect gone wrong. And you will have problems in not just the dog park, but with another dog that might be similar to the dog that attacked your dog, or your dog learned some bad habits and starts attacking other dogs, or being highly reactive, or even hiding or being fearful. Unfamiliar environments. Imagine being left in an unfamiliar environment like a shelter. It breaks my heart to see when people leave a dog at the shelter and they watch them go, wondering where they're going, or a boarding place, or even the vet could equal a stress response because they're getting an adrenaline rush. And all of those hormones are needed for survival. So important. I hear people say, can someone board my dog? And I immediately am thinking, have you helped your dog adjust to that boarding situation? Have you let them go and smell the smells and meet the people? Have they had any time with the person who's going to be with them in that boarding situation? But I don't think a lot of people think that far in advance. It's just, board my dog. I have to have someone looking after my dog. For me, I would probably have to interview 12 different people before I would have my dog boarded by them, because I would have to be sure that I trusted them and that they were positive. And so we're back to that homeostatic balance again. Stress response reestablishes the homeostatic balance. Just because the dog is stressed doesn't mean they can't come down from it, because stress is normal. It helps us, helps us survive, helps the dog survive, but it brings them back into that homeostatic balance, into a new norm that they can now learn that something else did not hurt them. It means the dog is adapting. So if the dog doesn't adapt, that equals acute or chronic stress developing and can affect health. So now imagine a sudden environmental change, which SEC, you heard me talk about that a lot in SEC. So over the holidays, you probably had a house full of people and kids, and that sudden environmental change to the normal environment, noises, movements, erratic children, changes of routine. And so the dog just has an overload, and they start barking they start hiding, they start growling if someone's coming too close. They've just had too much sensory input. So the picture below is a lot of people milling around to a dog who really can't handle that, and other dogs so we're sitting and just doing click and reward. We're looking at the dogs calmly, and then we can maybe move a little closer and do a little more, depending on how the dog handles that environment. And we also want to give her a break. So Sophie, the poodle, she pulls on lead toward prey, and she has problems with other dogs. So over the course of time, teacher dog Cody was able to be nearer to her, but she's turning her head away and she's kind of ignoring him, but she knows that he won't hurt her, or if she barks at him, he will not respond. So that's something, again, to consider when you're in any environment. And there are multiple environments. You're in an environment right now. When you step out the door, you're in a different environment. But a walk done over and over again in the same environment for a dog means encountering all of those anticipatory cues of the same dog, the same squirrel tree, the same bunnies in the same spot, or the cat that climbed out over the fence. You're just exposing them to accelerate those anticipatory responses until they become routine. And then you wonder why you have a problem with them reacting all the time or stopping them from doing so. You need to address these problems right away in every single environment that you go to. I don't look at a walk as just a walk. To me, I'm taking my dog every step into a different environment, and that environment could change suddenly, and I better be prepared for that. So we have environment competition, we call it. And here are my ways of doing walks. 3 types, but I think we're going to be taking a look at this little girl here. She can't handle the environment, so she freezes. Her tail is out, and she is like, "You want me to do what?" So she is not going to go any further, even with encouragement. And the owner is being good about it, asking, maybe just standing there for a while with your dog before asking them to go further. If you can get a few more steps further, great. Then reward that and then head back to the safety zone. So on a walk, have an awareness walk. And that is touted by Leslie McDevitt in her Control Unleashed books. The dog decides where to go on the walk, and that can be fun, just so that you know exactly what environment you're walking into and what they can and cannot handle. So let's take a look at a dog walking. This is a pup in a new environment, a lake environment. So I'm just letting him have an awareness walk. He can sniff what he wants and wherever. And we'll just, I'll just rerun that again because it's short. Let him have a sensory time, a nice quiet walk by the lake. And you can see that I made it so that I was very aware that there was no one there so that this pup could adjust. If I have things coming into the environment, I want to make sure that I have taught the pup how to handle those things, especially with a herding dog who has to be aware, and a guarding dog, of things that come into the environment that might not be pleasant and that they have to take care of. And then there are backpack walks, which we're just going to slip to the slide here for a second and then come back. Oh, maybe not. The next slide is on the backpack walks, and it's basically you put a bunch of wonderful items into a backpack and you stop at key spots along the way and just stop and interact with your dog on a sensory level. And then there are teaching walks where you teach check-ins and sits and downs and showing them the objects in the environment, or seeing squirrels and clicking and rewarding for not chasing, not barking, and teaching to look at triggers and stimuli in a positive way. The wrong equipment in the wrong environment can result in a dangerous situation for all. And here's one example of that. Watch this man. What equipment he has that we all hate. Kind of slow-mo here. Now the dog is turning away. And I just took this as I was walking my dog to show how this dog, we know this dog is not going to handle the environment very well. You can see the nervousness of this dog and what kind of equipment. Flexi lead. And what was all that petting about? He was nurturing his dog, but his dog wasn't really paying any attention to anything but the environment, not to the man. So when this man needs this dog to pay attention to him at the moment that he needs it, this dog is not going to listen. And then he lets the dog way out front like that, and we're moving away. We started moving away way back, much further as I was taking the video. I did ask the man if I could take the video. And there's so much more that he could have done in having the right equipment, first of all, and not taking this dog to an environment where other dogs and people would be until they had a very good success history. Also, dogs at a distance are a big problem for many dogs. Either overexcitability, doesn't mean aggression, but overexcitement can cause barking, reacting, and then really true aggression or fear where the tail tucks and the dog doesn't want to go any further. So let's look at before one dog is during an assessment.
All right, so now, all right, so stop.
See a dog up there coming, and I want to see if this dog can become the there we go. It can be, so that's a positive. But then he can. Did you see how he cannot problem solve? He cannot make good decisions at that point because he had a huge rush of chemicals to his body that are causing him to react. So he's not listening. He literally, his ears shut down. He can't listen anymore. So that was a problem. That was just not good. But then we have after working with these two dogs, two white fluffies, the other one is just responding to the other white dog. This is the problem dog. And we worked up to protected contact first with a teacher dog in a different outdoor environment.
Miles.
And I'm just introducing them at a closer distance so that they can be responsive to their names, and that the name Cody is a pleasant thing to hear. And he's responsive to me, and then I'm teaching him to move away. Don't ever forget to treat the dog that's in protected contact, because that dog is working hard. And in this case, Cody knows what to do. He won't go any further than what the other dog can handle.
There you go. Good job.
So that's a fun way to teach get back. And that's another technique that you can use in behavior within an environment. Get back, and that mitigates attention to you. And when you can say get back with your hand like that and toss a treat out and up and over the body, or you can say get back or move over with the treat tossed to the side. That makes you worth listening to. And isn't that what training is really all about? That we are worth listening to. So, same safe environment. Let's look at this again, and now off lead and some check-ins. Miles can now be off lead with another dog, and this is the first dog, and then we did second dog and third dog, and then walks in real life.
One-on-one time.
So dogs became irrelevant. You were always working toward that automatic behavior on how to see a dog and respond to a dog, and then respond to the owner, and so that other dogs in the real environment then become irrelevant.
Good boy, Miles.
I would have to feel pretty confident here that Miles can handle this before I would put him into that situation, as you should. It should be a very step-by-step progressive process. Very good. So he learned that he can come away from the other dog without any harm, and he doesn't have to constantly be bugging or barking at or lunging at another dog. And the other little Fluffy that you saw in the protected contact was the other dog that only responds because Miles was teaching him a bad behavior. And this is a little ensemble of the backpack walk that I talked about earlier. And I love this drawing, and it's by Steve Mann, and interpretation and text and images by Emma Judson of Canine Consultant in the United Kingdom. And he put this little drawing together, and you can make it your own. But the first things, what are you doing here? You're assembling a backpack filled with stuff, sensory stuff, from smells to maybe a tug toy, something that is fun to do on your walk. And then you pack the backpack, and you stop in a safe zone on your walk, maybe a bench or something, or under a tree. This is so popular that if my dogs are running in the woods and I go sit under a tree, they will come racing back to see what I have in that backpack. Everything else in the environment is absolutely non-existent. And then you investigate the contents of the backpack very slowly. This is a slow thing to do. This makes you become worth listening to. Show them the food that you brought. Maybe share something to eat. Maybe have a sensory stick or some stones or something with a branch. It could be anything. You can pack this backpack with anything. And then just really let them investigate the contents, and then repack it and leave and continue on or go home. And you can even stop again and unpack the backpack. It's something to look forward to. Walks should have a lot of thought into them, or this is when you get reactivity that you can't control, or aggression that you are having trouble with because you really haven't planned. And that's why you need a professional to show you how to do these things. So some other adaptability strategies are smell, sounds, motion. So desensitization, stop and go cues, counter conditioning, as we talked about earlier. People and dogs, they have to be able to socially adapt to people and dogs. So keep distance, distractions, and duration at what the dog can handle. And I'm talking, if it's a 10-second duration, then that's all that they can handle right now. And I have many dogs that can only handle very few seconds of duration. When you're thinking separation anxiety, you're thinking about that. How much separation can the dog handle? Is it seconds? We want to work up into minutes and then longer and longer. So incremental learning leads to lasting results. Environmental enrichment. You add things, you change things, you take away, take enrichment indoors and outdoors and on walks with the backpack walk, so that your environment, when it changes, it's not such a horrible thing for the dog. Now, I love this. I saw this being passed around Facebook this past week or so. And this just shows how competitive the environment is for our dogs and our attention to us. So here's all the smells that are going on in the environment in color. So there might be a squirrel, a bird, a person, another dog, who knows, a bunny. Something was in that environment. Who wouldn't want to read that with their nose? So how can you compete with that? It's through the training, because if you look at environments as competition for the attention of the dog, the responsiveness to you of your dog, then you'll be on the right track. Sounds and motion in the big city is also very, very distractive and competitive to learning. And then, of course, people and dogs and any kind of prey that you can think of. So environmental enrichment. You want to focus on the habitat, change the environment. Don't stick to just one routine all the time. Change it around, add new things, create new experiences for the animals that you have, in our case, dogs. Provide a cognitive experience. You help them exercise their minds, because that's just as important as giving them space to run and jump and climb and sleep. I have to add that too, because mentally tiring activities help them sleep better. And then we want sensory types of things like scents, and that's why you do nose work. That's why you do foraging activities. And we want to add sounds that encourage animals to explore their habitats. The sound of the mailman, the sound of machinery and equipment and cars, and you can get those on YouTube and just desensitize your dog to that incrementally so that it becomes no big deal when they hear it all the time. Hi, John. We're well into the conversation, so welcome and thanks for showing up. This will be available to all of you to watch later as well. And then we want to add, food, games and toys, and really enrich the environment that your dog lives in and plays in. So there are a bunch of environmental enrichment stories. So when we're changing an animal's environment, we want to do it in a way that improves their quality of life. And that kind of generates well-being. Here is a Great Dane, Skye. A cozy bed was added, and sensory enrichment. She is, or she was, human reactive. And then this is Ruby. You want to give her things to explore outdoors. It can be as simple as paws up on a stump or standing on a log. Use the environment that you're in to teach your dog what to do and how to maneuver the environment. And this is Gus, typical lab, loves to dig. So indoors, they provided him in a porch room with an indoor digging pool filled with dirt, and he loves that. And there's a door that closes it off. He doesn't get to dig in it all the time, but when he does, it's enrichment. That's another thing. Vary the enrichment and take it up or block it off when they're done using it so that it always feels new. And what Skye is working on, I have a few little pictures here on how you can make that particular toy. It's one of those holy balls, and just get a bunch of strips of cloth and some treats. And then you fold the treats into the cloth, and then you stuff the cloths into the holy ball. And let me tell you, they can really work on that for a long time. Now, this is a Great Dane, and watch how long it takes her just to work on one cloth. And she's not thinking about anything else in the environment. She's happy, she's safe, she's cozy, she's having fun using her senses. She's thinking about it. She's being pretty gentle with that cloth, so you can tell a little bit about her personality. She's a pretty gentle dog. So get your questions ready as we come up to the end here. I would love to answer your questions. And then we have Louis on the right here, and he's working on several puzzles. So another thing that I always hear is, well, my dog can do that puzzle in 5 seconds. Well, make it more difficult. Add more puzzles. Add 5, 6, 7 puzzles, and then pick them all up when they're done and put them away. You have a specific 15 or 20-minute period that the dog is actually cognitively involved with different things in their environment, environmental enrichment. The environment can predict a lot of things. You know, think about all the various environments that you're in, that you were in today, that you were in over the holidays, that your dog was in with you. It can predict good things or bad things. So just kind of weed all that out and let's always have it predict good things. A walk or run on the beach or in the woods, that can be fun for the dog if the focus is on safety and planning. Planning with a capital P, and what is done does predict that good things will happen. You've taught the dog enough so that if something like a snarky little dog comes around the corner, and you know, when you're training a teacher dog, that's where a lot of the training goes into, is to help them know how to handle different personalities of dogs, and they just walk away. That's a dog that can adapt to the environment. So you also want to see a decrease of glucocorticoids, not an increase, because then you're dealing with stress. A car ride, if that's enjoyable for the dog, something that's going to help them be in a better mood, a mood enhancer. So then we work on eustress, which is the good stress, and that builds mood. An example might be the favorite person appears in the environment that they just love. And so we've got serotonin levels increasing and oxytocin and many of the very good chemicals going throughout the body that make us feel good and make the dog feel good. And then well-being. And there's lots of definitions for well-being, but well-being, prediction of the appearance of reinforcers. Reinforcers should be fun. There should be so many different types of reinforcers. So this thing predicts that thing will happen. So basically, you're pairing something good with a trigger or stimuli, and that's counter conditioning. Reinforcers could be a lot of things: food, toys, social, environmental. Anything that you can think of that your dog loves, not that you love, but that your dog loves. And then if we want to look at the environment to change behavior with dogs that are already reactive, then we have to know what their core behavior is and why it's happening. So we do not expect the dog to know better because they're dogs. We should know better. For instance, when I say that, should the dog know better not to get into the garbage? Well, no, because they probably found a wonderful little tempting tidbit in there at one point. And so the garbage means self-reinforcement. So how can you get around that? Well, this is really foraging, isn't it? And using the senses and using the nose and gaining a little treat or something. Well, cover that garbage. I can't imagine. I've never had a dog that got into the garbage simply because I prevent it at all costs. You can put the garbage behind a door with a door lock, baby proof your house, just, you know, dog proof your house. Put a lid on that garbage, lock the garbage lid. There's so many different things, and then satisfy your dog's behavior, what they want to do, and that's forage. So fill a box with wonderful sniffing things that they can do. And again, the backpack walk is also a great way to do that. That is an acceptable thing for the dog and for you to do with your dog that doesn't involve getting mad because they got into the garbage. That was your fault. Or let's talk about the dog who barks at the mailman at 2 o'clock every day, coming up to the door, putting the mail in. Well, that's a predictor. That's one of those anticipatory responses. This particular dog shouldn't be outside waiting for the mailman if they're not good with the mailman. I'm assuming the mailman is going to give this dog a treat and that this dog is okay with the mailman. But one that isn't, you would want to make compensation and offer other things for them to do. Like maybe when the mailman arrives, you have a muffin tin filled with balls, and balls are really good so that the dog can work their mouth on them, but they're busy working on something. Their head is lowered, they're calm, and you can't be calm and reactive at the same time. So give them other things to do, basically. And I have taught dogs to catch a ball or go get their ball when the mailman comes so that they are chomping on some ball rather than your leg after they've built up all of the stress of the mailman coming in the first place. And then there's the stress of the visitor at the door and jumping on that visitor. And you can see in this case, the lady is reinforcing it. She's bending over and what a good dog you are. And well, you don't allow that in the first place. Have the dogs meet the person outside would be one thing that you could do on leash, walk by and get used to that person before you bring them into the house. Another thing you could do is barriers in the house where they don't rush the door and you can let your visitor in. And a surprise where you take a handful of treats and you say surprise and you toss it up and over their body and they race away to get it, and then you let your visitor in and you can continue to drop treats after that if you have good dogs that aren't going to bite the visitor. So again, everything occurs around the environment. Everything. So thank you for listening, and I will take questions now if you have any. And if not, you can review this as I will post it in the group of Canine Emotional Detox so that you can review all of this later. No questions? All right, then I'm going to turn all of your audio on so that possibly you can voice a question or two. So unmute yourself. If you have a question, just go ahead and unmute yourself. And if not, well, I hope you enjoyed this and got some ideas on how to change behavior in the environment that you're experiencing with your dog, and how important to know that the environment, everything revolves around the environment, and everywhere you go with your dog is a new environment. So you have to teach them how to respond in each one of those environments. So if there are no questions, then I thank you for attending. And the next Dog's Voice will be on January 9th, I believe. 2 weeks, Monday, 4 p.m. And I will have a speaker, and we will hopefully talk about body language at that time and how to read a dog's signals. So thank you for attending. Bye-bye.